I don't really have the knowledge or will to make a tier list right now, but if I had to, gun to my head, I'd probably pick Beastmen to be S tier, probably, honestly, for this patch. Because they're just so good in so many ways. It's a little bit unusual, though, to see a staunch line of spears against Dwarfs, but this is the build that Qualidec has chosen to go with here. Essentially, the spears are just holding the line, giving their melee defense to die slowly, while these power units get the work done. That would be 2 Minotaurs with dual hand weapons. Got the Butchers of Kalkengard as well. Of course, their shields and regeneration makes them very tough. Vobergland Broodmother, the regiment-renowned Jabberslythe, with its AoE damage effects, very effective against infantry. Morgar here as well for some spawn summons, and a Bray Shaman of Shadows. If you take a look at the spells here, we're looking at Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma and Pit of Shades, relatively simple damage-focused kit, although it is going to be mitigated significantly by, of course, Dwarf's Magic Resistance, charged up a little bit extra by Thoric Ironbrow, who's here leading the way. See what else he's rocking. Rune of Speed for extra melee attack, Rune of Wrath and Ruin for some damage, negation for protection, and of course the map-wide Rune of Doom from his Anvil. And yeah, it also gives that extra magic resistance, Locus of Power as well for AoE damage, or does it give extra magic resistance? I believe it does. Anyway, we've got Felix here. No, actually, he would have some if it was map-wide, so interesting. Guess they replaced it at some point, and I'm just, you know, cheese brain over here. But anyway, Gotrek's here as well. Dwarf Warriors done a nice octagon defense formation. Got a Peak Gate Guard, no Slayers, some Longbeards in the back, and some Quarrelers. Jabberslythe's going to dive on in and start to disrupt this line significantly. There's not a lot of ranged units, or again, no Slayers in particular, which could be a big problem. Slayers are such an essential unit for Dwarfs in so many matchups, especially those where you're going to be potentially rushed down by a bunch of big, scary monsters. Of course, their specialization is killing such. Let's see how these Dwarfs are able to hold out here. They got plenty of staunch units defending. The Jabberslythe taking some serious damage, as are the Butchers of Kalkengard on the approach. That cannon gets some good value, taking out some unit models. Yeah, 3 unit models down, which means those models cannot heal, right? So, looking pretty good on both sides. I mean, both players kind of have a few things going for them. Peak Gate Guard can somewhat stand in as Slayers, just because their overall weapon damage is so ridiculous. With Rune of Doom, they go up to 81 melee attack. But they are not as fast as Slayers, and they don't have the loose formation either, so they have a little bit of a tougher time getting a surround on monsters. Loose formation, honestly, is one of those things that it's really quite good in a lot of situations. Pretty much, I would say, most situations besides getting charged by cavalry or monstrous infantry. Loose formation is just so good. But the Peak Gate Guard will do their best. They're an incredibly powerful unit in their own right. Let's see what happens as the Butchers of Kalkengard kind of collapse on in there. Thorek shoring up this flank, gets a nice Rune of Speed to buff up the melee attack for those Longbeards. Dwarf Warriors, they'll do just fine trading into the Beastmen chaff. That is the one thing. The Ungor Spearman Herd are going to be completely unthreatening. Not that the Beastmen have much infantry that can contest with Dwarfs. I mean, Bestgore really not particularly cost-effective for doing so, so the build setup actually makes a lot of sense when you consider it from that perspective. But, yeah, this big old ugly Jabberslythe having a grand old time, getting just circle smacked by hammers. That'd be most uncomfortable. Do the runes actually burn? Rune of Wrath and Ruin does fire damage, so I imagine that the runic attacks, even though they don't technically deal fire damage, somewhat burn, or I guess just smack the armor off? I don't know. Don't think about it too hard. Anyway, these men are going to continue the assault here. The core is quite strong. Gotrek could potentially be quite dangerous to the Jabberslythe, but those animations, how it just goes tumbling all about, just rolling around and having the best time of its life. It's very tough for Gotrek to keep up. I mean, a unit of Slayers, especially the Dragonback Slayers with their slow, are going to be so much more effective in actually getting some damage in. Although, Jabberslythe, honestly, as long as it has support infantry nearby, can always go hide in them to a degree. So, we've got a nice Pit of Shades here. Not going to do an insane amount of damage, but we'll certainly clip those Longbeards. That Peak Gate Guard are able to mostly avoid it. Do take some damage there, but this ball of Minotaurs here is quite dangerous. Their overwhelming mass just smacking the dwarf models down, not allowing them to get their attack animations in. It's a good situation for the Beastmen to be in. Nice Rune of Doom, though. We, again, see that massive melee attack, and I'm going to keep the health bars up as I kind of get in close. You guys can see the damage effect. Well, it's not actually that impressive on the Butchers of the Kalkengard and the Minotaurs here, again, because they're kind of getting pushed around a bit there and not able to really use their melee attacks too much. Got the Chaos Spawn now summoned up here. The other summon there, so Beastmen are on their full power spike, pressing on all fronts, trying to get as many dwarfs down as possible, but the dwarven leadership is holding up in many respects. This death ball with these characters is going to be very scary as well for the Beastmen to deal with. Obviously, Gotrek, Felix, Thorek himself, absolute Chad on his anvil, with his bros hoisting him. Just imagine the shoulders on these guys. What you rocking under that pauldron there, sir? Anyway. Yeah, not that kind of video. But Morger is also kind of grinding a little bit here. It's fortunate for him that the dwarf characters are kind of dealing with some high mass units of their own, or else they might come around and just try and pummel Morger, which would actually be, I mean, sniping the Brace Shaman at least would be relatively easy. Morger less so, but might be effective. I love the cannon crew manages to get back online and loose a couple more shots here into the big beasties before they get run down, although the spawns are about to desummon. Will they be able to get another shot off? I don't think so. It looks like the other units will be able to follow up quickly enough. Maybe? Come on. Just one shot. Just for me, please. No? Okay. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, the terror kicks in and they wisely run for the hills. So looking pretty grim now for Thorek and his team here of heroes. But certainly I've seen them hold out against many a horde, so we'll probably have to put this in a little bit of fast forward as this heroic engagement plays out. We'll take the flags off so you guys can kind of actually see what's going on here to a degree. I mean, it is quite hard to see where Gotrek and Felix are at. There's at least Gotrek. He's somewhat easier to spot. Felix just kind of gets lost a little bit, but he is honestly one of the important ones here, right? Because he's actually providing the healing. And the Beastmen are able to get him away from the other two. Is he actually out of range for his heal? Let's check that real quick. Looks like, yeah, both of them just barely in range to be getting that heal. But yeah, if Felix gets broken and chased off here, which is often the case, it's not going to be able to keep the others topped up. Not to mention, I mean, Gotrek not going to trade particularly cost-effectively solo due to his lack of armor against Morger, who is... got decent weapon strength, decent stats overall, not the most armor of his own, but 400 weapon damage and poison. It's tough for Gotrek to deal with. Just in general, Gotrek's lack of armor is a big problem for him, although did he actually just get his healing burst? It didn't do a lot for him. Not really enough to keep him alive much longer against Morger there. Looks like we've got one more Rune of Speed. Nope, Dwarf player is going to give it up. Yeah. I don't think he could have held out there. Thorek might have been able to grind it out for quite some time, but not against all this that remained. I mean, still got the Jabberslythe, you've still got Minotaurs as well, so quite a good build from Qualiduck. I like the dual hand weapon Minotaurs too. It's a little bit of an unusual pick, but it makes a lot of sense against the Dwarfs, especially when you still have the numbers to try and saturate missile units and not let them get shot up too much. Of course, the shields and the extra melee defense does help the shielded version to be more tanky, but yeah, I definitely like the extra offensive output here, I think. Butchers of Kalkengard themselves are just fantastic. I like the pick of the Jabberslythe as well to kind of act as a line breaker here. You have to be careful against a more dedicated missile build, but again, have the tools to bog down and shut down enemy missiles, no problem, so... Yeah, looking at the rest here, Ungor Raiders didn't really do much, but they're kind of nice insurance as well against, again, Slayers, which the Dwarfs didn't bring any of. I definitely would recommend them. As much as I like the Peak 8 Guard, this is not necessarily the matchup. They're more of an anti-armor unit. Really not going to be facing a lot of armor against the Beastmen, so it would make more sense to just bring more higher damage units against Slayers. Even against Beastmen infantry, if it's not the most cost-effective engagement, their high weapon damage allows them to cut down low armor units, no problem. And, I mean, maybe you see some Zangors in this matchup. I don't know. I feel like they kind of trade a little bit awkwardly here. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. Certainly the speed seems like it would be helpful, but it's an interesting one, no doubt. Gotrek in the hero squad. Thorek's just such a Chad. I don't know. I'm not really sold on Felix necessarily Godric himself, too. I mean, he's decent, but he just kind of gets bullied in a lot of matchups. I feel like, I don't know if they changed his like stagger profile so that he takes staggers more often, but anyway. The rest of the build is just kind of here to a degree. I mean, definitely lack of Slayers is a problem. Biggest problem, I would say, with this build, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. Anyway, if you did, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified if you are subscribed and have clicked that bell, so do so if you want some more, and we'll see you next time.